You're listening to the Just Japan podcast. Everything you want to know about Japan.
Hey there, folks, and welcome to episode number 148 of the Just Japan podcast. Everything you want to know about Japan. My name is Kevin O'Shea. I'm a Canadian. I live in Japan. More specifically, I live in Kobe, Japan. And each week I bring to you a podcast, a show of sorts, about Japan's stuff. That's right. And that's why the home of the show is also called JustJapanStuff.com. But the Just Japan podcast comes to you each week through your interwebs, through your iOS device, your Android device, your computer, your Abacus, your Fisher-Price, SkyTalker, or walkie-talkies. Yeah, that's right. It's the way you can listen to a lot of people talking about a lot of stuff, Japan. And this week, another great episode. Returning guest Jim Mullins, aka Mully, joins me to talk about some Japan myths. That's right, people out there who've never been to Japan, but are very interested in Japanese culture and Japanese history, this and that, often have a kind of mythical image of Japan built up in their head. Well, we're not really going to talk about it in a deep, meaningful way, but we're going to talk about it in a fun way tonight. And we're going to kind of dispel some myths and shed some light on ones that are real. It's a lot of fun to talk about. I even wrote some different blog posts about this episode over on JustJapanStuff.com. So, episode number 148, Japan Myths. Thanks for joining us. Now, of course, the Just Japan podcast can be found in all major podcatchers. The iTunes, the Libsyn, the SoundCloud, the Stitcher Internet Radio, the iHeartRadio, the all over the place, guys. Go check it out. SoundCloud, did I mention that? I may have. So just do a Google search for Just Japan Podcast. Or one great thing you can do is go to the home of the Just Japan Podcast and the home of a lot of other cool Japan-related stuff. JustJapanStuff.com. That's my site, folks. I run it. Got a lot of guest bloggers recently, or some guest writers. Hopefully some more will become, more will be coming on. The bulk of the written content is from myself, Mr. Kevin O'Shea. Got a lot of new articles up there. Got a lot of things about the new seasonal sakura drinks that have been hitting Japan. Seasonal food, seasonal beer, travel stuff, cultural stuff. It's all up there. I even wrote an article last night about the Japanese myths around technology, or the myths that people outside of Japan have around technology in Japan. We talk about it in this episode. Go to JustJapanStuff.com. You can read about it there. Oh yeah, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. I'm recording this part of the episode on March 8th, 2017. I've got 2 days left in the school year. That's right. As a teacher, I've got 2 days left. Now, I work at an international school, but my international school is a little bit different. Normally, international schools go by the kind of North American school year, where school begins in late August or early September and goes through until June. Mine actually kind of goes by, that doesn't kind of go by, it goes by the Japanese school year, which is the school year begins in April, it ends in March. So I'm finishing up on Friday, the 10th. That's right, guys. And I'm really looking forward to a nice vacation. But I'm going to be pretty darn busy during that vacation doing a lot of stuff, some projects I'm going to be working on. A really big project I'll be working on. Lots of things to do. But there will be time for relaxation in there, time to wax philosophical. Well, maybe not that, but at least, get out into the woods, the forests of Mount Roko, do a bit of hiking, bring out the camera, do some nature photography, the things I love, because that's what I like to do, get outside, take pictures, and, learn about nature and things like that. And also, it's a busy time just in my house, that's my job I'm talking about, but we got some big things happening here. My son is graduating from kindergarten in a few weeks from now. Not even that, less than that. My son is in his 3rd year of kindergarten. That's right. They have 3-year kindergarten in many parts of Japan. He is 6 years old. If he were in Canada right now, he would be in grade 1. Past halfway through grade 1. He would have started grade 1 back in September. But here in Japan, the way it works, he's still in kindergarten. And he is going to be finishing soon and starting Ichinensei, which is grade 1 at the local Shogako elementary school. He's got his randosel, his Japanese leather handmade backpack, ready to go, and he's very excited about going to elementary school in April, and it's going to be a new adventure for him and a new adventure for us. My daughter, who is 3 years old, she'll be turning 4 on May 1st. She will start kindergarten in April, and she'll be going to the same kindergarten my son is graduating from. And she's really excited about that. So we got one kid starting kindergarten, the other kid starting elementary school. Crazy time in our house. My wife is really busy because she has to make a lot of things for both kids. When you go to school in Japan, when you go to elementary school, you have to have all these special bags. The school will tell you have to have something called a side bag where you carry certain books in. You have to have like a bag for your bento box, your lunch box, a bag for your inside shoes. Because remember, change shoes when you go inside in Japan. You have to have a bag for other things, all kinds of bags. My daughter too. Now, luckily, my wife is very handy, more than a little handy with a sewing machine. She's an incredible maker. She loves making children's clothes. I think if you follow me, on my social media, on my Facebook and stuff like that, from time to time I'll post things about my wife's Instagram, and she makes incredible clothing, children's clothing. She's so talented. Absolutely amazing woman. I'm punching above my weight. I married up. I'm a lucky guy. And I'm lucky to have such awesome kids, Kai and Rena, on some about to embark on some really big adventures really soon. And that's really cool. And that's going to be coming up. And I'll let you know how it goes in April. Oh boy. We're going to be podcasting about that. New experiences in my family. All right, guys and gals out there. It is spring. Spring's upon us. The peach blossoms, the plum blossoms. Soon the cherry blossoms will be upon us. Some already are. Some types of cherry trees are already blossoming, but the bulk of it hasn't even come close to starting yet. And it's going to be happening soon. And I'm excited because I love Hanami, the Hanami season here in Japan. But first, before we talk about Hanami, which we will be talking about in another episode, let's talk about Japan myths with our friend, Jim Mullins, a.k.a. Mully. Everyone out there in Just Japan podcast land, I'm having trouble talking. It's episode number 148. We're approaching our sesquicentennial. I think that's what it's called, sesquicentennial. And I only know that word because Canada is having its 150th birthday this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a young country, Canada. And the city of Kobe, Japan, where I live, it's the 150th birthday.
Well, there we go.
So there you go. So almost 150 episodes. And this week I've got returning guest, Mr. Jim Mullins.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you for coming back on the podcast.
Good to be here, Kev.
Is this the first one of 2017?
No, I think I've been on once already.
Yeah, who knows, right? I don't know. I can't count. Okay, for those of you who may be new to the podcast, Jim, aka Mully on the interwebs, he's been on the show once or twice before. A regular panelist, one might say. But I know that a lot of people have been coming on recently. A lot of new people actually came on board to the Just Japan podcast just in the last few weeks. And I know that last week with our Japanese sake episode, a lot of people who were friends of Gordon Heddy, who was the host, or not the host, I should say, the guest last week, from a lot of his kind of sake world friends have subscribed to the Just Japan podcast. So I'm sure they're all going through the back episodes. But if they haven't yet, Jim, can you give us a little bit about yourself, a little introduction? Who is Mully in Japan?
Okay, well, I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been over here since 1991. So basically, my entire adult life has been spent living in Japan, right?
Oh yeah.
And in that time of 26 years now, in that time, I've only been home like 5 or 6 times, if that. My last trip back to the States was in 2005.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been, well, when we got married, we went over for our honeymoon and haven't been back since.
Not Jim and I. We didn't get married.
Yeah, after Kevin and I got married. And then let's see. I teach English. Got the usual gaijin gig over here. I've got my YouTube channel and got my own podcast, the Mully's Place podcast.
And you're a musician as well.
Yeah, I play guitar. I try. And yeah, all kinds of good stuff.
Basically, a man of intrigue and mystery.
That's right. If you want to find me anywhere, just go to is it too early to plug it?
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
www.mullysplace.com. MULLYS place.com. All links to everything. Social media related.
All the Meledias are right there.
All the Meledias. All the links to everything.
All his Meledia links are at mullysplace.com, and all my Meledia's links are at justjapanstuff.com.
That's right. I created a new word. Yay!
So this week I wanted to talk about. Well, actually, the idea of this came from Mr. Andrew Higgins.
Yay, Higgy!
Frequent guest on the podcast. And
I had a question about that. Why isn't he in on this?
Good question. I don't know.
Because I saw that message earlier and I was thinking, well, why isn't he in with us?
He was like, I want to hear you and Mully talk about this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he sent me a private message saying, you and Mully should talk about this. So I was like, all right.
Okay.
My brain has been working a lot lately. I've been working a lot, which means my brain is shut down.
Okay, sounds good.
It never stops working this. My brain does, but I haven't.
Well,
okay.
We wish you were here, Higgy.
Yes, Mr. Andrew Higgins. Oh, he'll be on again soon, I'm sure. Just wait.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was curious. He sent me a private message saying he said that you and Tomoko, and that is the person that Jim is married to, when he talked about going to America in 2005.
Yeah, I was just kidding. I'm not married to Kevin.
No, yeah. Aw. My loss. Okay, so
but we spoon when we're together.
Yes, whether we're in public or not.
Right.
Last time we did that was at a Brazilian restaurant. Yes. Okay, that's a whole other story we're not going to get into. But
right.
Folks, we're going to talk about everyday myths in Japan because like Andrew had mentioned to me, he said, "Hey, Mully and Tomoko did, from time to time would talk in videos about myths that people who are Japan fans or people who are not in Japan and other countries have about Japan." And a lot of these are kind of like everyday small myths.
Oh.
And some of them are like way out there.
Yeah.
We're going to mostly focus on those.
Yeah, if you're here long enough, and if you're into Japan, I mean, if you're here long enough, and you've been here long enough, you see so much horse patooey about Japan, and you're like, really, where do they come up with this stuff?
Exactly. I sent you a couple of links to some articles that I'll briefly mention later on that are just like you're face palming. You're like, no.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
No, this does not happen in Japan.
Yeah, exactly.
It just doesn't. But what we're going to talk about first, we're going to talk about the kind of everyday myths. And these are kind of small things. And for all of you out there who are listening who are, well, obviously, if you are listening to the Just Japan podcast, you're into Japan. But if, I'm not trying to shatter any dreams or images of Japan, but some of these things, we're just going to give you a dose of reality. And we're not doing this in a cynical way.
Well, you know what it is, Kevin? This is kind of something that goes along with living here.
Mm-hmm.
You got a lot of people that live on our podcast or watch our YouTube and stuff like that. And they want to, they got a dream of coming to live in Japan, I want to go over there and experience that. And then they get here, and there's a couple different personalities of people that get here.
Yeah.
One of the personalities is the type of person that finds out that it's not all cosplay and manga 24/7.
True.
And it's like living anywhere else.
Yeah.
And the image is shattered, and they just hate the place.
And
then there are other people.
They're expecting that fantasy.
Yeah, and then and this place does come with its quirks.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't say it doesn't, right?
Yeah, for sure.
and there are people that accept it and kind of, oh, this is kind of interesting, and see some of the other stuff. Anyway, so
Yeah. So I mean, we're not trying to be cynical here, or
no,
be like old men on the porch, yelling at people saying, "Get off my lawn."
damn kids.
Exactly. We're not that. We're just, hey, just this is reality. We're going to talk about it a little
Right.
bit about it. So how about we throw some of these points back and forth at each other? We can maybe I'll throw the first one out, which kind of touches
Sure.
on something I threw to you and you threw back to me. That Japan is such a high tech society. Oh my God, they're just ahead of everyone else in the world with their technology. What do you think about that, Jim?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably the same as any modern country.
I would say, to be honest, I mean, there are some things that are more, but I think Japan is even less tech, lower tech in some ways than America
Yeah.
or Canada.
I'd say that too. And it's kind of funny because like if we switch that to the other side, like when it comes like internet access, oh my God, they're so advanced here compared to other places around the world, like download speeds.
Yeah.
Good God, man, I was getting like over 100 Mbps, just Mbps, Mbps, right?
Something like that, yeah.
I'm getting like over 100 speeds, right?
Yeah.
When I'm seeing people in the States getting like 4.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when it comes to something like your home Wi-Fi, your LAN connections, your home internet connections, definitely Japan is doing a fine job.
Right.
And when it comes to things like, I think when people think of Japan, they're thinking like robots, like the SoftBank robot Pepper and all these different things. That's what you're thinking of, that kind of tech. But I mean, and so there are things that are good. I mean, service is good for phones and whatnot. But when I think of like, for the most part, Japan is still a paper-based society when it comes to like businesses.
Yeah.
And if you work in a school,
they still use a fax machine.
Exactly. There's the prime example. They don't, and it's used daily.
Yeah.
Like people like companies, offices, schools on a daily basis fax each other documents.
Hold on, real quick, Kevin. I'm going to kill the camera so we get a little better connection.
Sounds good. If you guys are wondering what we're talking about here, we're doing this call.
We're using the high tech Skype.
We're using the high tech Skype, and to be honest, in almost 150 episodes, this is one of the few times in the last 10 minutes Jim and I have actually had our cameras on, seeing each other's beautiful faces. But the sound quality normally isn't as good.
Right.
I was just so enamored though, I couldn't brace with that. But now we're only doing the audio thing. But yeah, no, but definitely, I mean, like fax machines are a common thing. Like I'll be now I work at a private international school, so we definitely have a lot more tech where I work than in a public school. But from time to time, I'll be sitting there and all of a sudden I hear the sound of a dial-up modem, like a 1997, 98 dial-up modem. And I'll look over at the printer, and the printer's got a built-in fax machine. And then I hear that sound, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have flashbacks of trying to download MP3s using Napster.
Yeah.
And my mom calling me up and complaining that every time she tries to call me, the phone is always busy because I'm always on the internet.
Right. Dial-up.
Dial-up, yes. So that is, I mean, the whole kind of paper-based culture, which is still something that is very prevalent in Japan, is very low tech. Are there other things that you can think of maybe that might surprise people with the kind of lack of tech here in Japan?
Oh God,
I guess
Kevin,
really,
there's nothing. Throw something out there, Kevin, if you got something.
I was just
think
thinking,
about
actually, for me, really, I guess it is just that kind of paper-based thing. That's still what surprises me, how, for us, so for example, if we're going to change jobs, of course, everything's going to be done digitally. Your resume, your cover letters, your everything, your references, that's all done digitally if you are from a Western culture. But here in Japan, you're still, if you're applying for a new job, you're changing jobs, you're going to actually have to literally go to the convenience store or a stationery shop and buy a special template, a paper template for a job resume, where you're going to glue your photo that you had taken in a photo booth and print it off, and you cut it with scissors. And you
have to write it out by hand.
Exactly, you're gonna have to write out your resume by hand.
And if there's a mistake anywhere, you have to start over.
Exactly.
You can't cross it out. You can't use white out. it's got to be perfect or they won't accept it.
Yeah. And that's one of those really interesting things where, so for example, if you're here in Japan and you're a foreigner like we are, and you're, for example, applying for a job at an international school, you're going to do that all digitally. But for example,
Mm.
if a nice private high school is looking for a teacher, a foreign teacher, or a university, you're going to have to fill out your resume that traditional
Yeah.
Japanese way on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've got one.
Oh, do you really?
I've got one.
Wow.
Now you're probably going to receive mail about this because if we don't explain it in details, you know how it is. You know, the message sent's never the message received, and you have to break everything down to its, smallest form. So let me preface this by saying that yes, there are situations where people use their phones to pay for things. There are situations where you charge things, blah, 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 but Japan is still basically a cash-based society.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? I mean, it's still, even like debit cards are still something that's relatively new catching on.
And I know there's going to be people out there, oh, what? I pay for my train tickets with my phone. Yeah, we know that, okay?
Yeah.
We get that. We understand it. But the majority is still, it's cash-based.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
don't use credit cards very often.
I mean, you know what? I moved away from Canada back in 2002, and I think I was using plastic a lot more then than I do now.
Yeah.
I'm still using cash for most things, to be honest.
And Japanese people are still very, very wary about online shopping.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, Rakuten is becoming more popular. Amazon is, but still, it's not like back home. It's not like that at all. And Apple Pay, I think, just came here a few months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's something that's relatively new. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving along. Okay. So, hey, Japan, the trains are always on time, man. They're never late. Thoughts?
Okay. Well, I think we'll have a different opinion on this.
Now, I know that you're mostly you're a driver, right?
Well, my point was going to be that I'm not in a major city like you.
Okay. Yeah.
There's three trains that come through here. One going north, one going south, and so four. One going north, one going south, and then the Shinkansen, one going north, one going south. That's it.
Okay, so you're living in a pretty small place compared to me.
Yeah, we don't have that big, massive mess of different trains and subways where I'm at. So the only time the trains are really late here is if there's an accident of some sort, somebody jumped, or there's a car on the tracks or something, something to delay it. Typhoons, but for the most part, I would say, if somebody asked me, I would say, yeah, you could set your watch by the trains.
Okay, now, like in my case, living down here in the Kansai, living in Kobe, which is about 1.5 million people, but we're connected with the larger cities of like Osaka and Kyoto and all these things. The train lines are all connected. So if there's an accident or someone jumps in front of a train in Kyoto, that's going to affect Kobe here, 70 kilometers away.
Sure.
And I would admit, I mean, where I grew up in Canada, Eastern Canada, we didn't have trains, and we didn't have commuter trains, and we didn't, public transport was minimal at best, or non-existent where I was growing up. But I mean, like, trains are often on time, but I think just because of the population density, there are a lot of accidents. There are a lot of like signal errors and delays. We do have like accidents where trucks drive across the track.
Okay, well, let's put it like this then, Kevin. If they're not on time, it's not because they're being lazy.
No, okay, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, one thing that does happen here a lot, and you've heard us already mention a couple of times, people jumping in front of trains. I think everyone will know, and this is not a myth, that the suicide rates in Japan are quite high.
Yes.
Compared to other countries, and it is a pretty high pressure society, I suppose. And a lot of people choose to end their lives, those who do, by jumping in front of an oncoming train. So they'll be standing on a train platform, a train is pulling into the station, or whizzing through a station, and they hop in front of it.
Right. And it is not a myth that the family is held financially responsible for that too.
Exactly. Yeah, that is not a myth. And it does happen, sadly, quite regularly. I know in an area like here, and often when the train is late, because of that, it's going to be really late. And sadly, or I guess, this is a very sad topic, but in the local train stations where they do have very high tech screens explaining what happened, it refers to it as a human damage accident.
Oh,
in English.
that's nice.
What they call it. It's like, oh boy. So I mean, definitely, like you said. Well, I mean, from my experience, when I used to be a train commuter, now I'm a bicycle commuter. Trains were, at least where I live, several times a week. I'd be dealing with late trains, and
Uh,
but like you said, it was never because someone was lazy.
right. It
There
was because of something.
it
Yeah.
was because of something serious, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Move
Well,
on.
since we're on transportation,
Sure. Yes.
one of the ones that I hear quite often is that Japanese people ride around in rickshaws,
Really? Now, where do you hear that? Do people ask
which
you
is
that
which is which
on?
is in Japan it's actually called a jinrickshaw.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll see that at like touristy areas.
Like Kyoto, you'll see that
Yeah,
around like the big temples and
yeah,
shrines
around the
in
huge
Kyoto,
castles.
and
Yeah,
it's literally it's a tourist thing, and it's guys who really fit guys with giant muscular legs who
yeah,
dress up in traditional clothes,
yeah,
and that's the thing. It's like I guess just like if you're in Canada in Quebec City, you can get in a horse-drawn carriage.
yeah. And those guys that they're wearing the traditional the hoppy and whatever the hell it's called. Um, they're doing that for the tourist people. It's not
Yeah,
like it's a uniform for the show,
exactly.
to put it that way. Now like I said, I've been here 26 years, and until I started geocaching, which was what 2012, so 5 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
I had never been down to Kakegawa Castle, but there was a geocache down there, and we went down there to find this geocache, and I saw these guys running with the rickshaw. It's the first time I'd seen one
Hmm.
in 20 years.
I've only ever seen them in Kyoto when I visited Kyoto.
And I was like, wow, check that out. That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you were under the impression that people ride around in rickshaws, no.
That's definitely not true.
Definitely not a thing.
Definitely not
Yeah.
a thing. Okay, so I'm sure that every time you go to school or you go to
Uh-huh.
work or on the weekend, I'm pretty sure it's safe to assume because we are in Japan that
Uh-huh.
you're seeing cosplayers, right?
I have.
You have, but not all the time.
No, 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 no. I mean, like
Oh,
I've seen
that's a setup, folks.
okay, I would say it's probably been a good forever since like I remember back in the old day I might occasionally my lips are getting ahead of my brain. I would occasionally see these girls dressed up like little Bo Peep,
Okay, yeah,
the Bo Peep girls.
yeah. Hmm.
But that was like 20 years ago, and it'd be like at the train station, so they were probably going to Tokyo.
The kind of gothic Lolita look, I think they call that.
Yeah, and then when I got to well, they were called the Bo Peep girls back in the day. I don't know what
Okay.
they call them now.
I think it's like
Um,
Lolita they call them, or gothic Lolita, but I could be wrong.
right, and then there's an area in Tokyo. What's it called? Do you know, Kevin? In Shinjuku
Harajuku.
and Harajuku.
But
Yeah,
I've heard
uh,
I've heard that's even kind of dying off.
yeah.
The Harajuku
But
Bridge.
but that's
Harajuku
that's
Bridge.
that's about where you would see it, and if you saw anybody, that's probably where they were going.
Yeah.
But it's not something you see all the time.
Mm, that's
You
the
don't
thing.
you don't see cosplay on a usual basis.
But a lot of
No.
people ask me that. A lot of people seriously ask me, like, do you see a lot of
Yeah.
cosplayers around? And show us some videos of cosplayers, and can you go out and vlog about a cosplayer? I'm like, well, I mean, occasionally,
Yeah, you would have.
occasionally, like in some like really big parks, you might on the weekend see like a small group of cosplayers who are like friends,
Yeah,
together
you
with.
you would have to put some effort forth
Yes.
to find something like that.
Yeah, I mean it's a hobby. It's an interesting subculture for a lot of people who do it. A lot of people love to like make props and they make their own costumes, for like their favorite animes and mangas and stuff like that.
You know what, Kev? I kind of want to add here that if you're not into it, if you're not into cosplaying and stuff like that, you may not see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're into it, I'm sure you would find a network where you would find out where the people are and what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure there's bars where people do it, and they got to get to those bars, so you got to see them out in the street like that. But
And there's events. I know I've seen from time to time here in Kobe, even at some different like kind of exhibition halls and stuff where they have events from time to time. I'll be like, what's going
Right.
on here? I can remember one time getting on the Portliner here in Kobe, coming from downtown Kobe to going home where I live on Port Island, and there was a big convention center, and my son Kai was at the time about 3 or 4, and there was a cosplay convention thing going on, and we got on the train, and there was just like everyone was dressed up, and it was like the summertime. And I was like, "Daddy, it's Halloween! It's Halloween!" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." Kind of like that. It's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. And you're probably going to get a buttload of mail on this one too. Like, oh no, cosplay is alive and well in Japan. Well, yeah, it
Yeah, oh
probably
yeah,
is
yeah.
if you're into that,
Yes, yeah,
like,
yeah.
but if you're just, if that's not something you're into, it's doubtful you'll see it.
Well, it's like in America, like in America right now, the con in America and Canada, the whole the convention scene for like
Yeah,
geek stuff, anime stuff,
right.
like comic book stuff, it's just exploding. There's cons everywhere, and a lot of those
Yeah,
places attract a lot of cosplayers, and it's a big thing at those places. But I mean,
right.
if you're just going out on a Saturday afternoon downtown,
Yeah,
you're not going to see that kind of thing, really.
right.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's kind of what I wanted to address because some people have asked me, not some. I've gotten a lot of people
Oh,
asking me over the
sure.
years, you must see cosplay every time you go outside. It's like, no, I don't.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
never see it.
yeah, especially where you live. I mean, at least because I'm
Uh,
living in a big city, you're living in a kind of a more not rural
Rural
area,
area.
yeah, but I guess kind of a small area in
Sure.
Shizuoka. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. What else we got there, Kev? Oh, well,
Okay.
let's see.
You throw something my way here.
Well, we were talking about the high tech stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wi-Fi. People think Wi-Fi's everywhere here.
Mm,
It's getting to be better, and this kind of contradicts what I said earlier about our network connections.
yeah.
Like when you're home and you're on Wi-Fi, your connection is super awesome.
Hmm.
But if you're out and you get a Wi-Fi connection, a lot of times it really sucks. Like 7-Eleven has
Yes,
Wi-Fi,
I was thinking of that as an example. Actually,
and it
7-Eleven.
is so slow. Oh my
Actually, what
God.
happens a lot of times when I go to like 7-Eleven have that free Wi-Fi. Often, if I'm in a 7-Eleven trying to use my phone, I'll actually just turn off Wi-Fi
Yeah, yeah,
and
me
just go to
too. Yeah,
4G
most
because I
definitely.
can't
Yeah,
even
for
I
sure.
can't even check like Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah, the new thing here on my phone where I got the new contract where I get 20 gigabytes a month,
Oh wow.
and it's like 6,000 yen.
Hmm.
That's through SoftBank. And yeah, so I don't really run out of 4G service anymore,
Okay.
you know. Um and
Yeah.
and that's another thing, the cell phone prices are so much cheaper, I think.
Well, yes. Now there's
Because we don't get charged for incoming calls and stuff like
oh
that.
no, like if you're in Japan, if you're using your iPhone or your Android device and you're on a plan with like say SoftBank or AU or KD
Yeah.
or what's the other big one? AU
Docomo.
Docomo. I mean, it's so affordable compared to
Yeah,
America and Canada.
I pay $60 a month.
I pay even less
This
than that, and I'm on AU, and that's just because I rarely use 4G.
Yeah,
I
I've
pretty
got
much only
20
use my phone.
gigabytes.
Hmm.
I got 20 gigabytes per month, and which is more than enough. I upload videos, I do live shows, and I haven't run out yet.
Okay, so okay, you know what? So that just explains to me then. I'm wondering how the heck do you do all this live Facebook stuff, man?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
I've got 20
okay, now that explains it to me because I'm
Yeah.
just like that doesn't make sense
Yeah.
because I'm on the 7 gig thing, and
Right.
I've actually never, I've never, no one month I hit my cap and I got
Uh,
throttled with just a couple of days left in the month,
that
um,
hurts.
but that was only once, and since then I've never even come close to it because at work I've got Wi-Fi, which is just super fast, and then I basically download all my podcasts and listening stuff. I get them, and then I commute by bicycle. It's a short commute. So if I'm listening to something, it's like a downloaded podcast, and then as soon as I walk in the house, I'm on Wi-Fi.
Well, the last time that I reset my statistics on my cellular data
Hmm.
was February 10th, and since then I've used 13 gigabytes.
Okay, wow.
So,
And this guy, Mully, does a lot of live Facebook stuff,
yeah,
which is obviously that's using a lot of bandwidth, right?
right.
Um, but cool, yes, and that is true. Now there's a myth. The overall phone service is very good in Japan.
Yeah.
If you're out your 4G service compared to other places in the world, and it is
and it's affordable.
It's very affordable, very affordable.
Mm.
I mean, I hear stories of like the horror stories of Canada, where I'm from, about how much money people have to pay and how crappy it is, and
Yeah.
I'm really thankful I'm not dealing with that.
Uh,
Okay, so moving on. You sent me one thing. That some myths people have about Japan is the fact that it's such an amazingly clean place, and people in Japan don't litter, right?
yeah, that's a crock of crap right there.
Ah, yes, I so
And
agree.
and the for the most part, streets and sidewalks are clean. The train platforms are usually clean, but people toss their cigarette butts on the ground. And the one that really, really pisses me off, and excuse the French, is when you see a bunch of young people outside of a convenience store leaning up against the trash cans, eating out of their bentos and drinking their drinks, blah, blah, blah. And then they leave all their trash laying right in front of the trash can and just walk away. And beaches here, oh my God. Since they back in 1995, I think it was 95.
Okay.
There was a sarin gas attack in the
Tokyo Underground, the
Tokyo
subway.
Underground, and since then, they've taken out trash cans in public areas.
Yeah, so if you guys aren't familiar, that was the 1995. There was a religious cult called the Shin Omrikyo.
Om Shindikyo.
Om Shinrikyo, yeah. So it was a cult, a doomsday cult, and they did this like nerve gas attack on the Tokyo subway that killed a whole bunch of people. Really horrible.
Yeah. And some of the packages were in the trash cans, so they've basically removed trash cans from a lot of public areas.
Yeah. So
and
I mean, like, ironically enough, like you mentioned, convenience stores all have trash cans. Excuse me for clearing my throat. I'm dealing with allergies.
But on a Friday and Saturday night, it's not uncommon to see a lot of trash on the ground around those trash cans.
Exactly. And even like, I mean, where I live here on Port Island, kind of the main walk areas where you have cleaning staff and stuff, that's fine. But like, for example, if you live in Japan and you have a TV or a microwave oven or an appliance and you want to throw that away, you've got to pay a fee. So you've got to pay a kind of a takeaway fee. It could be a few hundred yen. It could be a couple of thousand yen. Like, it could be a few bucks, or it could be like $20-$30. And you have to go get a special, like in my apartment building, I have to get a special sticker from the office. I have to pay money to get the sticker and put it on the large trash, and put it in the garbage area. So
it's so much easier just to dump it at the riverside.
Exactly. So a lot of people will load up their car with this stuff that they don't want, these big like appliances and TVs and old computers, load them in the car in the middle of the night. They drive out somewhere on the side of the road, and that's I used to run a lot in the area where I live, and it was amazing the piles of trash, like like office chairs, desks, TVs, microwave ovens. I just see laying on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And people just do it in the middle of the night, so they don't have to pay that takeaway fee. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I used to say back in my negative days, because you go through that stage. When I was going through my negative days, it was, oh yeah, Japanese people keep the area around their house clean, but everywhere else it's just let it go. With the other side of that, sorry, another thing with trash, something you see on the highways. I drive everywhere.
Okay, yeah, I don't do that, so I don't have that perspective.
So when you're on the highways, oh, dude, you have no idea how many 2-liter bottles filled with urine you see laying on the side of the road from truck drivers.
Actually, do you know what? I see those every day when I'm cycling.
There you go.
Because I cycle past a couple of major on-ramps.
Yeah, there you go.
And I see all the, if anyone's familiar with the Canadian comedy TV show, The Trailer Park Boys, piss jugs.
Yeah, okay.
Because one of the lead characters in that show, his dad's a trucker, and he always talks about having piss jugs.
Right.
But
I tell you one thing that bids well for us, they get it to fit down that little opening. I'm
not going to go there. Okay. Not going near that myth. Not going near that myth.
Okay, stay away from that one. But they, you'll see bottles filled with urine, all over the highway. But what I was going to say on the other side of it is, as much as you could say there's a lot of trash, you could also say there are a lot of people that will bag up, like if they're at a beach or at a party or something, they'll bag up their little trash and hang it on uh, that rear windshield wiper
Mm-hmm.
on their car.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes you'll see cars with a little bag of trash hanging off of there.
Mm,
They do that. They put it on that little windshield wiper, and then when they get home, they throw it away.
yeah. Which is often what you're going to find if you're here in Japan, you're going to have to do. You're going to have to basically just carry your trash home with you.
Right.
And
So
throw it
if
away.
you see somebody, if you see a car with a little trash bag, a little plastic bag hanging off of the rear windshield, the rear wiper on the back window, that's what that is. It's somebody that cared about what they were doing and put carrying their trash home.
Yep. Exactly. So I mean, again, we're not like pooping on Japan here.
Not at all.
I mean,
No, because you'll go, and I'm sure you, like you said, you ride your bicycle all the time, so I'm sure you see this all the time. You'll see these old neighborhood ladies, these old ladies from the neighborhood, out there picking up trash in the mornings, picking up cigarette butts and little pieces of paper. Yeah,
you see, actually, there's a river near my school where I work. This small river where I go often. I bring my students to this river a lot, and for anyone who knows me, I'm really big into birding and nature stuff. I love bugs and birds, so I'm always, even like if I have free time, I'm wandering around this river with my camera, taking pictures of birds and stuff. And the water is probably only about knee deep to like thigh deep, and all the time you're gonna see groups of people throw garbage in the water, or it gets in there somehow and down, and at least a couple of times a week in the morning I'll see groups of volunteers, like old people wearing like these special little hats for their volunteer organization, and they're out there literally in the river, and they're just picking out all the trash, picking out the water, picking up from the bottom, cleaning up that river, and you see it all the time. So I mean, there are of course, like anywhere, there's going to be people who throw that trash away, but there's also people who care about their community
that are out there cleaning it up. Sure.
Exactly, and probably more so here than in other places.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm curious. Would you say that everyone in Japan knows karate?
No.
I didn't.
No, but Kevin, when you told me that,
yeah,
I actually have a story about that. I'm kind of guilty of spreading that one.
Okay, go ahead, share the story. I'd love to hear it.
We went to Australia on a school trip, and we were at this school way out in the middle of nowhere in Australia, and some of the Australian boys were getting aggressive with the girls. Okay. Sexually aggressive, they're hitting on the girls.
The Japanese students.
With the Japanese girls. The Australian boys were getting a little aggressive with the Japanese girls. And I pulled a couple of the boys aside and I said, "You guys better be careful. All these kids study karate and they'll whoop your ass." And they left him alone after that.
Well, sometimes a little white lie doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
I think in a case like that, that's more than okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you think about it, I mean, you're a man about town. You're a musician. You get it. You got friends and stuff. And would you, of all your good Japanese friends, how many of them would you say like know how to do karate?
I actually have one student that used to do karate, and he's a grown guy. He's 36 years old. I know that he used to do karate a long time ago, and I've got some elementary school students that do it. But besides that, no, I don't know anybody.
Exactly. Now,
I don't know anybody who knows karate.
Of all my adult Japanese friends, I don't know anyone who ever did it. At my school, we actually have a compulsory karate class. So every kid in my school studies karate, like once a week though, and some do it more. But these are all children. But as far as adults go, and I think my school is a private school. It's a different case. It's not a public school. It's not a normal thing. It has to do with like the owner of my school. Her father was a famous karate practitioner and teacher. So I think it's been something always kind of incorporated in the school. But yeah, I don't really know anyone who. I mean, of course, it's a Japanese traditional martial art, but it's not that common.
Yeah.
Now, when I lived in Korea, it's pretty safe to say that almost everybody did Taekwondo, and that's just because in Korea they have mandatory military service.
Okay.
So every healthy man has to serve 2 years in the military at some point in their life, and it's mandatory that they do Taekwondo during the military training. So it's really common there, but here, no, not so much. Yeah, so that's a myth. No,
Yeah.
judo I think is a lot more common.
Yeah, I would say that too. Yeah.
More people do judo, and you can tell if you have a male adult friend who's done judo because they all have the cauliflower ears, right?
Yeah, and let's also dispel that myth that along with not everybody doing karate, not everyone is into M1, K1, or K2, whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah.
MMA, whatever. Yeah, come on. No,
they're not.
no.
But it is true that most people who took judo in any way seriously during their school days, they're gonna have cauliflower ears.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing, the cauliflower ears.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but that's actually I did talk about that on the judo episode. I did way back in the day. We talked about cauliflower ears. So guys, listen to that one if you want to hear about cauliflower ears. Okay, so I sent you a couple of links to a couple of really let's just get crazy here, man.
Oh wait a minute, wait.
Yeah.
What about the sushi thing?
Oh, what about the sushi thing?
Everybody eats sushi all the time.
Oh, that's right, daily, right? Because we're in Japan.
Right.
No,
Not true. And I get a lot of people. I'm going to dispel an American myth. A lot of Japanese people think it's strange that I don't drink coffee. What? All American people drink coffee? No, they don't.
or chew gum.
Yeah. I don't chew gum. God, I can't remember the last time I had a piece of gum in my mouth.
Now, mind you, I do drink coffee a lot, but I don't chew gum.
But Japanese people are just like any other people in the world. Not every Japanese person likes sushi. I know a lot of people that won't eat it.
And they certainly don't eat it all the time. Even people.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I love sushi, and my kids love sushi, and my wife loves sushi. We don't eat it that often. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like anything. You even if you really like it, you don't eat it all the time. I suppose.
Yeah, I would say my wife probably eats sushi once every 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And that's something she'll grab at the supermarket.
Yeah, and same in our case too. We're not even going out to a restaurant. I mean, we don't go as a family going out to a sushi restaurant. That's like a birthday thing or a special occasion.
Exactly.
But I mean, if we do get sushi, it's probably going to be from the supermarket, and still that's maybe once a month.
But we also need to say that doesn't mean that sushi's not eaten here. Of course it is. It's eaten quite often, and you can find sushi places all over the place.
Oh yeah. And if
it's not a prerequisite for Japan that you eat sushi.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna find the conveyor belt sushi places all over the place. You go to every supermarket, it's gonna have like a small sushi section, sometimes maybe a bit bigger. But
yeah,
again,
I was at the pool hall one night, and just up the road from the pool hall there's a McDonald's, and I stopped in at McDonald's to grab something to eat, and I took it to the pool hall with me. And when I walked in, I had my bag of McDonald's with me. And the guy behind the counter says, "Oh, American people really like McDonald's." And I was like, "You do realize that shop wasn't built especially for me?" Yeah. And I was probably the only foreign face in there tonight. Just because I have a bag of McDonald's doesn't mean that I love McDonald's. It was just convenient for me.
Well, I suppose that comes to like myths. I'm a Canadian, and in Japan and in Korea too. Because for those of you who don't know who are listening, I lived in Korea for 5.5 years. I mean, the myths about
do you drink maple syrup like water?
Basically, that's what people think. I mean, they basically think we eat maple syrup every day. You eat maple syrup? I'm like, actually, even when I lived in Canada as a kid, like my mom and dad would probably make pancakes like once every 2 weeks or like once a month, and then we'd eat maple syrup. It's expensive in Canada too. French? Do you speak French? No, I don't. What? But you're from Canada. It's a bilingual country. But I lived in a place where no one spoke French. Yeah, I studied it in school, kind of in a not so great way. But like no one spoke French where I come from.
Right.
Oh, you're a hockey player. You play hockey. I'm like, well, I played pond hockey as a kid, but I never played organized hockey. But you're Canadian. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think every country has, certain myths about them. That, and Japan is the same as other ones.
Right.
Okay, but I do want to I want to address the ridiculous, man, because
Do it. Go for it.
a few years back, and this article is from 2013, and there was a lot of articles. I remember this popping up everywhere, and it just being like, "What the heck was this?" And I sent you a link to this article today. One article from The Telegraph, which is a British newspaper, and the headline is Japanese craze for eyeball licking leads to rise in infections. And the byline is, it's a craze for eyeball licking among Japanese schoolchildren is reportedly causing a surge in eye-related infections.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe I'll read a little bit of the article. The unusual trend, which can be found in Japanese manga, comic books, popular music videos, yeah, okay, and YouTube, is an expression of intimacy, also known as oculolictus. The recent popularity for eyeball licking in Japan has reportedly resulted in a growing number of school children wearing eye patches to hide their infections. Never heard of this. Like when this came out, even I was just like, and everyone who is in Japan and in a situation like us who've been here for some time, who are teachers teaching kids, never heard of this. Did you ever hear of this?
No.
Yeah,
No,
but I remember it blew up in Western media. I mean, this is the Telegraph, which is a big newspaper, the telegraph.co.uk, and I remember reading about it like a lot of different big foreign media outlets about eyeball licking, and they use terms like craze, sweeping the nation.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose this kind of like falls into play with like you sent me you mentioned about the general weirdness of Japan, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people just really think Japan is a really messed up country, like just crazy. Like there's eyeball licking happening all over the place, and weird bondage stuff, and
tentacle porn, and you'll get like vending machines.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can buy used schoolgirl panties in a vending machine? No, you can't.
Never been here.
No, you can't.
Been here 9 years almost. Never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I've seen adult vending machines where they have like magazines or maybe some toys, but they're like way out in the middle of nowhere.
I saw that once,
and they're covered. In
9 years here, I found one machine that sold condoms and different electronic devices for like pleasuring oneself.
Sure.
And it was just once. Once I saw
it was probably covered.
It was actually literally in a neighborhood, a regular kind of in the middle of Osaka, in a kind of not around any like clubs or bars, in a regular neighborhood beside a drink vending machine. And it was just I happened to be buying a drink at the machine beside it, and I was like, I looked at it and it clicked like, oh my god, is this what I think it is? Oh my god, it is.
Yeah.
So I once made a video about it, but I privated that video because it doesn't fit the style of well, basically, students discovered my YouTube, so you don't want people seeing things like that anymore.
Sure.
Yeah, so my YouTube is all now very Disney Channel kind of like, very friendly. But yeah, so those ones maybe with like dirty magazines or this or that may exist very rarely, but like you mentioned, the whole
but you're not going to be walking down the street in Kobe, and you're not going to be walking down the street in Sannomiya, Kobe, or in Shinjuku or somewhere and come across a porn machine.
No, you won't.
No,
it's not going to happen.
No.
And
that's not to say that they don't exist,
but I mean, I'm sure some of them maybe exist like inside maybe a kinky adult shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Or down a back alley beside a kinky adult shop.
Yeah.
Somewhere. But that's a myth.
Yeah, and I saw something one time about how Japanese people are sleepy on the trains.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you're standing, they've got this device. It's kind of U-shaped at the top, and it's got a long pole that goes all the way down the floor, and you can rest your chin in it. Okay. And they say, and then I saw this online one time. And it said, Japanese people use this to, when they fall asleep on the train. No, they don't. And I've seen like a crazy umbrella that's like really huge, and then it's got like plastic that goes all the way down to your feet, so you're like in. Oh well, because of the high wind and rain, Japanese. No, they don't. No, they don't. I've never seen anything like that.
Wow.
Doesn't exist. I mean, it may exist, but you're never going to see it.
Now, mind you, one thing that did happen one time to a coworker of mine,
Uh,
you may have seen on different things like Rocket News 24 and stuff,
mm-hmm,
where you could buy an umbrella that looks like a samurai sword.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of my coworkers was wearing one of those one day, or slung over his shoulder at a train station, and someone called the police, and he was walking to school, and I'm not sure how it all went down, but like the police basically showed up at the school, or while he was on the way to school, he got picked up, and then it got sorted out. But someone saw him wearing that umbrella across his back that looked like a samurai sword, and they called the cops.
Oh,
Yeah.
one thing, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Foreigners are targeted by police.
Oh God, that's such BS. Oh, sorry.
No, they're not.
Yes, I know. I even hear like people complaining about that sometimes on YouTube or on Twitter, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Well, the people that I see on YouTube that are complaining they got stopped by the police for no reason whatsoever,
Mm-hmm.
they're usually covered in tattoos and unshaven with piercings all over their face and all this and all that. Okay, yeah, I know, don't judge a book by its cover, but yeah, that's not the reality of life. You are judged by the way you look.
And in Japan,
It's conservative.
very conservative.
Japan.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do have tattoos, which I know in 2017, I mean,
I've got tattoos.
You've got tattoos. That's right. You've got tats. But there is a connection in Japan, a traditional historical connection to crime like organized crime. It's kind of a symbol of who you are, that you belong to a crime family, and people are just not used to seeing people who have piercings or dreads or dress in kind of different ways, and they want to stop you and find out where you're from or what's going on, what you're up to.
It's when I hear somebody say, and there was a YouTuber that used to live here. He's no longer here, but I once heard him say that over the course of a year, he got stopped 9 times by the police.
Okay.
For no reason whatsoever. Now, I've been here for 26 years and I've never been stopped once. Kind of 9 times you didn't do anything. I think.
Yeah, exactly. And that guy who probably didn't get, people who complain about being stopped for no reason were probably like hammered off their minds, drunk on a Friday night or Saturday night somewhere.
Yeah, and probably being real belligerent asses with the police when the cops say something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I've been stopped once, and it happened this year. I've been stopped once in almost 9 years in Japan. I got stopped once. I left work. I cycle commute every day. I got on my bike. I was leaving school, riding down the road, and there was a big intersection, and there were cops at all 4 corners of the intersection. 2 cops at each corner. Cops stopped me, and they smiled, and they were so friendly, and they were like, and they actually, one of them spoke English. He's like, "Is this your bicycle?" I said, "Yes, it is." He was like, "Can we see some ID?" And I'm like, "Sure, no problem," because I'm just coming from work. Show my ID. And if you own a bicycle in Japan, when you buy a bicycle, you have to automatically register it with a local police station,
right?
Which costs 500 yen, about $6 Canadian or $5 American, maybe. And so it's attached to your ID. He looked at my ID and he looked at my bike and he called in actually like my bike to make sure it was my bike. I hadn't stolen the bike and it was my bike. He was like, "Oh, it's okay." But I looked over at the opposite side of the other side of the road, and they had a Japanese person on a bike, and they were doing the same thing.
Wait a minute, Kevin. You mean that dragnet wasn't just for you?
It wasn't.
Oh, okay.
They were stopping Japanese people on bicycles too.
So I've been stopped by the.
Yeah, so they were just stopping anyone on a bicycle, just checking to make sure that it was their bicycle.
I've been stopped numerous times by the police, but there were reasons for it.
Yeah.
I ran a red light. I turned right where I shouldn't have turned. There was one time I thought was a little questionable. I came out of a 7-Eleven. I got in my car and I drove away. And when I got around the corner, I got pulled over. And they asked me if I'd been drinking. Now, I don't know what led them to do that, Uh,
But actually,
I
you know,
kind
when I got stopped, I was actually asked if I've been drinking too, and they're like, "Have you been drinking?" I'm like, "No," and they're like, "Can you breathe in my?" The guy was like, "Can you breathe in my face?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
yeah. They didn't go any further than that. Now I will say, and these are for the people that say, the Japanese cops are against foreigners. I was caught drinking and driving,
Okay.
and I was really, really drunk. And the cops took me home and told me not to do it again.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I never got behind. And that was 20. That was like the first or second year I was here.
Hmm.
And I'd never gotten behind the wheel with alcohol in me since
Well,
then.
you don't even drink anymore, so
No, I stopped drinking. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, after that, I never drove when I was drinking. Um, I got stopped one time for running through a train crossing.
Hmm.
You're supposed to stop at every train crossing
Hmm.
here, and I didn't. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was coming home from work, and I just kind of whizzed right through it because I was out in the middle of nowhere, and there's nobody around. And man, I crossed that train crossing, and my lights hit the police car, and it's like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
And I didn't get 100 feet near the lights came on. They pulled me over. Be careful.
But
Don't run.
that was your fault, right?
Yeah, my fault. It's completely my fault.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't stop.
exactly. Yeah,
But
exactly.
but they didn't give me a ticket. They let me go.
Mm.
And they could have. So there's two instances right there where they could have ticketed me and they didn't.
Well, there's also that whole thing, and I think this just goes to dealing with like when people talk about like getting stopped by police and harassed by police in Japan. I mean, it's all about the way you deal with police, and like
Uh,
what we've already kind of talked about here. And the same would be in
uh,
America or Canada. If you
yeah,
are polite and respectful when a law enforcement official, you're dealing with law enforcement official, it's probably going to end up okay.
yeah. Hey, man, you got no right to ask me where I'm
Who do
going.
you think I'm? Why do you always pick on me? Like I can remember when I was in high school, there was a guy that used to get stopped a lot, and he would always say stuff like that. Why do you always pick on me? Why do
Yeah,
you... If you were just like, "Excuse me, officer. How can I help you, officer?" Da da. Just be respectful.
yeah, exactly. And for the people who are out there, oh man, I can't believe it. Why would you say, hey, we feel the same way. Don't. Why are you stopping me? Why are you questioning me? Blah blah blah. We feel the same way, but we're not going to say it because the reality of it is they can cause you a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and also too, like in my situation where I talked about being pulled over and they're checking my bicycle, I've had over my years here in Japan, I've had a lot of coworkers who've had their
Uh,
bicycles stolen.
mm,
A lot of like bicycle theft is a very common thing in Japan.
oh yeah, yeah,
People steal bikes all the time,
yeah,
and they're usually not foreigners stealing the bikes.
yeah, yeah,
They're
exactly.
Japanese people stealing the bikes. So and I've had friends who've had their bicycles stolen
I had a bicycle stolen.
from a train station, like a parking lot. They
Mm-hmm.
report it to the police, give all their name and information, and like 2 weeks later, the police like, call them up and like, "We found your bicycle,
Mm-hmm.
like on the other side of the city." Like it's
Yeah,
like doing a sting operation. Like they pull in and we're gonna return it to you. And I've
I
actually,
had
yeah,
I had one bike stolen, and then I sold a bicycle one time, a mountain bike, and like 7 or 8 years later, after I sold it, I guess the guy hadn't registered it himself. He left it registered in my name. And the police called me saying they found my bicycle. I'm like, what bicycle? I don't have a bicycle.
mm,
And they're like, oh, it's a blow. And I was like, I sold that like forever ago. They said, well, it's over at this place. You need to go get it. So I went over to the place at the station. It was one of those bicycle parking
yeah,
lots.
yeah.
And I went in, Kevin, that bike must have been sitting there the entire time.
Like
The
an
the
abandoned bicycle.
the tires were dry rotted. The seat was totally dry rotted. I mean, it was just like in such worse condition. And I said to the guy that was working there, I said, "What would it cost me for you to take care of this?" He said 1,000 yen. I said, "Just take it then.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not I'm not putting up with this."
yeah. That's well. I mean, hey, once upon a time, many years ago, I bought a bicycle for a 6 pack. You know,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
guy's
yeah,
like
yeah.
an expat who lives in my neighborhood was like, "I got a bike." Like, I was like, "I'm in the market for a bike." He's like, "I got a bike. It's pretty new if you want it." And I'm like, "How much do you want it for?" He's like, buy me a 6 pack of Asahi Super Dry." I'm like, done.
Yeah.
I never went through the effort of changing over the ID and stuff.
Well, hey, Kevin, that leads to Japan is crime free. No, it's
Mm.
not. It's not crime free. I mean, it's less crime than other places, but there's plenty of crime here. You got to be careful with your stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to be safer than, yeah, it's safer than most places, I'm going to say, in the
Yeah,
world. I think most
yeah.
places. You know, um,
But bikes, bicycles, and umbrellas,
umbrellas, God, yeah.
they go missing all the time.
Yes.
You're more apt for somebody if you drop money. You're more apt to have somebody pick it up and run it up to you than you would be somebody leaving your umbrella alone.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Yeah, it's weird how you could I've literally gone to a convenience store on a rainy day, like gotten off the train, it was raining, bought an umbrella at a convenience store, walked a kilometer to work, put it in the thing and the umbrella holder, and when it was time to go home that night, it was gone.
Yeah,
That's happened more than once.
yeah.
Um, so people say, Kevin, why do you bring your umbrella to the classroom? I always bring my umbrella to my classroom and
Because I don't want somebody stealing
hang
it.
it by my desk. And I'm like, I don't trust anybody.
Right.
No one here would steal it. Yeah, well, they did the other 3 times.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, Japan is a wonderful place.
Oh, sure, sure,
It's an
sure.
awesome place. I mean, you've decided, you've been here for 26 years.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'll die here.
Yeah. So there's proof in the pudding right there.
Yeah,
But like any place, there's no such thing as a perfect place.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. You said it earlier, Kevin, but it doesn't hurt to say it again. Is that we are not ragging on Japan.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Just pointing out some of the myths that you hear that they're not exactly true.
No,
But
I mean, I love this place. I love this place. It's an awesome
anywhere
place.
you go, these things happen. I think that's the key point, Kevin. We're just letting people know that this place really isn't that different than anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as crime goes, yeah, it's a lot safer here.
Yeah, but if you're in the
But
wrong
then
place at the
again,
wrong
I'm
time.
not a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman may have a different perspective as far as being sexually harassed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Ass grabbed on the train or a boob grabbed or whatever.
Because that
A
stuff does
woman may
happen.
have a whole different perspective on that one.
Because that stuff does happen.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But even like for example, Japan's so safe. I've never been in a fight in Japan, but I also have never been in a situation where I would be in a fight.
Right.
I'm not a big drinker. If I do drink, I'm having a beer at home. I don't go to
Right.
I'm a family man with the kids at home. I don't go to bars.
I stay away from the foreign crowd.
Yeah, and I don't go drinking. I don't hang out at. Yeah, I don't go to bars drinking. I don't go to hang out with I don't go to nightclubs and stuff. I don't go to the places where stuff like that happens.
Right.
I'm normally in bed.
Yeah.
Well, tonight I'm podcasting a bit later than normal. I'm normally in bed like shortly after 10 or 11.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm 49 years old. It's 20 to 11. I'm ready for
Yeah,
bed.
it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, But I mean, like if you're going out, if you're going out to the clubs and partying it up and stuff, maybe things do happen. Like
Yeah.
there's fights and crimes and assaults, but that often,
Ah.
no matter where you are in the world, stuff like that goes on in places like that.
Here it is. I'm 49 years old. It's 20 to 11. I'm getting ready to take a pee and go to bed so I can get up at 2:30 to pee again.
Yeah.
And then another one at 5:30.
Well, on that note, we should wrap it up because I'm turning into a pumpkin soon myself.
Yay. And there's so many more things.
Oh yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's just that, Japan isn't crazy. It's not wild. It's a good place to be. It's really fun.
Yep.
You can really have a good time here if you're flexible, because there are going to be a lot of quirky things that make you go, what the F?
Yeah.
Even now, sometimes I see something, I'm like, Jesus Christ, did that just happen?
Yeah, well, yeah, and you've been here, I mean, much longer than I have, and I have those moments often as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
no place is perfect. Japan is pretty damn awesome, but
it is.
It's not a manga, it's not an anime.
Right.
Please don't expect that. It's not a land of all kinds of weirdness happening all the time. It's not a
oh,
land.
what?
Yes.
One myth I do want to dispel: Japanese people are so racist. Not really.
No, not so
racism
much.
exists here like it does anywhere else, but it's definitely a lot worse than anywhere else, and it sure is a lot better. These foreigners that say, "Oh, especially white foreigners that say, "Oh, now I understand what black people go through."
Oh God, never. No, you don't.
Oh, for God's sake! You know how much you just degraded black people by saying that.
Yeah, it's very entitled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things happen here from time to time. Like, you may get turned away from a real estate agent. They don't want to show you an apartment. That does happen, but for the most part, people are really, really giving. They're very helpful.
Yes.
I've told this story on the previous podcast. I wouldn't be able to tell you which one, but my mom was over here. My mom and stepdad were over here, and when they were going back to Tokyo, when they were going back to the airport, when they got to Tokyo Station, they didn't know how to get to the Narita Express, and they stopped some businessman that was walking. They asked him how to get to the Narita Express, and he actually walked them to the train, got on the train with them, took them out to the airport, which is like an hour and 10-minute ride.
Wow.
Took them where they needed to go, and then he left. And that kind of stuff happens all the time.
Probably just sent a message to his wife like, "I'll be a couple hours later than usual
I'm
for
helping
dinner."
some people out. Yeah, and things like that do happen all the time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
People will bend over backwards to help you here.
And they expect nothing in return.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do give them something, they really, oh, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, cool. Well,
okay,
you know
well,
what,
Kevin, I gotta go lick my wife's eyeball.
Yeah, you gotta go lick your wife's eyeball and go pee as a pre-pee
Right.
for the later pees tonight.
Right.
Okay, so as we wrap up our Myths About Japan episode, Mully, throw it at us again. Where can people find you online?
www.mullysplace.com.
Nice, guys. And of course, the show notes for this episode, as in every other episode, will be at justjapanstuff.com. Go there, check it out. There will be things there. And I'm actually going to, I hope I remember to do this tomorrow morning, but as I cycle to work, I'm going to stop by the off-ramp, on-ramp I pass every day and take a photo of the pee jugs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if I can, that is it for this week. So. There you go.
Nice. All right, man. Cheers and take care, Mr. Mully.
See you, Kev.
See ya.
Hey, what was that TV theme show song? What show did it come from? Let me know. Contact me somehow. And if you got it right, I'll mention you in the next episode. Why am I doing this? Because why not? Now back to the show.
The number you have dialed has been changed. The new number is... Please note, the new number is...
All right, Jim, thank you so much for coming on the Just Japan podcast yet again. Remember, you can find all of his stuff over at mullysplace.com. Mullysplace.com. All the links to all the things we talk about tonight will be found at justjapanstuff.com. Go there and check it out. Yeah, guys, so that's it for this week's episode of the podcast. Remember, you can always contact me. You can email me at justjapanpodcast@gmail.com. That's right, justjapanpodcast gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at jlandkev. You can find me on Instagram at jlandkev. Hey, we got a Facebook page, facebook.com/justjapanstuff. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at BusanKevin or jlandkev. All over the place, folks. And all those links will be in the show notes for episode number 148 over at justjapanstuff.com. Yeah, so this is the last episode for me of this school year, but I'll be coming back to you next week while I'm on holidays, and hopefully I can push out some extra content during the holiday time. As ever, I'm darn happy that you awesome, amazing people out there are listening to this podcast. So many of you are downloading the podcast and sharing it. Remember, the way you can help this podcast get bigger and better and more awesome is by sharing it on your social media, guys. Share the links, tweet the links, write. Hey, if you have a blog, write a review, please, and share it with me so I know. If you are a journalist working with a newspaper or some kind of news organization, why not pimp me out? Promote the podcast. Write about us. Talk about us. If you're a podcaster out there, I would love to collaborate with you. Contact me. I've just told you a whole bunch of ways you can do that. If you are someone who thinks you have something really amazing to offer about Japan, or just a cool story about Japan or cool stories, hey, I'd love to have you come on the podcast. Send me a message. Talk to me. I'm always up and open to have people coming on the podcast. You know, it's about connecting with you great people out there who love Japan and love listening to the show. And I do want to work harder to get more people involved. So that just about does it, folks. So what can I say? What's my takeaway from tonight? We weren't in any way Japan bashing, of course, and we said that many times. We were just talking about our experiences in Japan and the things we see versus the things that we hear about we don't see. All right, guys. My name's Kevin O'Shea. I'm a Canadian. I work right here in beautiful Kobe, Japan. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm going to put a link into the show notes with the whole Kobe PR ambassador thing, promoting the city of Kobe. I spent the last year as a volunteer helping promote this amazing city that I live in. I'm going to put posts or links to the PR ambassadors Twitter feed, Twitter feed, Facebook page, and all that stuff. And I want you guys to go like them. Those will be in the show notes at justjapanstuff.com. Oh yeah, back to what I was saying. I'm Kevin O'Shea. I'm a Canuck. That's right. I eat bacon and maple syrup. And I say things like a boot. And I spell center, C-E-N-T-R-E. I spell color, C-O-L-O-U-R. And I have a roof on my house. No, I don't say those things. Those are stereotypes. And we've talked about some stereotypes in Japan tonight. I'm so happy that you amazing, awesome people out there downloaded this episode. You listened to it. I'm so happy that you spread the word about this episode on your social medias. And wherever you are in the world, I hope you're happy. I hope you're healthy. I'll be talking to you real soon.
Bye.